Well, what happened to the Colorado Rockies over the last few days? The Rockies get swept by the Pirates and they only score one run against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Are we down bad or is this just some growing pains? We'll talk about that next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. Bit of a loser's Monday here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. Welcome into the show, everyone. It's the DNVR Rockies show presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code DNVR365. You place a bet for $5, you can get $150 back in bonus bets. And over the weekend, we were hoping to get any sort of run support, any sort of offensive action back, and that just wasn't the case. The Rockies scored one run against the Pirates. We've got a lot to talk about on our show today. And welcome back. It's been a few days. We had our last show on Wednesday. We're also doing another Wednesday show this week because we're golfing on Friday.
That's right.
So another Monday, Wednesday pod this week. Welcome back.
Monday, Wednesday, you love to see it because although last week it would have been nice to have one on Friday just to be able to talk about taking 2 of 4 from the Dodgers. And now we have to sit here and talk about losing all 3 games to the Pittsburgh Pirates, who ironically, you're obviously very good at this podcasting job. But when we were talking about the going forward and nobody can predict sports in the future, but you kept mentioning you mentioned the Pirates series like
I might
4
have
or 5
it.
Different times where you're like, oh, they can win some games.
Yeah.
and then they
can catch up a little bit here.
Yeah, they get swept and score 1 run in 3 games.
Oh, God.
Pretty electric.
I feel like for a moment we got a little spoiled because we had this new and improved offense or version of the Rockies offense with all these young guys. And for the last month, this offense has looked semi-competent, at times even good. I mean, like you just said, you split 2 games, 2 out of 4 against the Dodgers. You're feeling like things are looking better. The offense looks good. And we know pitching is definitely not anywhere near being where they need to be. But the offense is like allowing you to stay in games. This last weekend, I think, was hard to swallow because it reminded us what the beginning of this season looked like for the Rockies. Because if you remember, you go back to March, April, May, even June, but mostly March, April, May, pitching was actually decent. I mean, we were kind of sitting there saying, hey, okay, maybe you're at a decent spot with the pitching. You've got a couple starters back who weren't terrible yet, but the offense is atrocious. I mean, the Rockies were striking out every other at bat. Guys couldn't score runs. Kyle Freeland was going 6 innings, giving up 2 runs and getting the loss, and you're just pulling your hair out over the offense. It felt like that again these last few days.
Yeah, it's a movie back into the past.
Yeah,
where you're not scoring a single run for, I think it was a 15-inning drought to start the series. And then you got the 1 home run, and then you went on another 12-inning drought or 11-inning drought. It felt very much like early in the season when you just couldn't score. And now the pitching, ironically, it didn't feel like the pitching always feels bad when the offense can't score. Like when you get a 2-run double yesterday, the first 2-run double from a guy not even hitting like 220, which, he had like the series of his life, of course.
He was hitting 600.
Yeah. But when you have no offense, it seems like that first run that scores, if it's the other team, you're completely drowned. And it was correct. It's not always correct, especially, you flash back to the Pirates at the Rockies series. They got outscored a ton in the first 3 innings and then came back each time. But you just felt like there's no chance the second they scored 2 runs. And I will give the Rockies a little bit of, I'm kind of in the middle here, the kind of on the fence, if you will, in deciding whether or not this is, we're overhyping this lineup, or they just had you could have a bad series.
Sure,
the Yankees have had bad series and they have an insane offense. Every team has bad series. And every time the Rockies have a long homestand and then go on the road, their really good offenses usually struggle for a game. their mediocre to below average offense that they have in this entire year struggled for 3 straight games, and you just you hope that it doesn't continue into the Houston series.
Yeah, it was a little weird. I do think it was kind of a flash in the pan. You also have to remember Pittsburgh has good pitching. The Rockies got to see Skeens going out there and doing what he does, what we expected him to do at Coors Field. But there's some angles to this. But I also think this is a good opportunity for the Rockies because I think, you can't expect a team that's going through growing pains like this to just go out there and just steamroll everyone. And like Drew says, up at the top of the chat, we probably are overhyping some of these guys, but it's natural, right? Like we see, you get some new shiny toys and it's natural to be excited about those new shiny toys, even if long-term that excitement, that honeymoon phase might kind of level itself out a little bit.
It's every toy with my son. I give him a toy. He loves it for 10 minutes. And then it goes in the toy box and he may not play with it again for a month. And
well, my dogs do that too.
Yeah. And then they find it again. And then all of a sudden they're obsessed with it. It makes no sense. And so we are excited. But I will say, no matter what's happening, whether it's bad or good, it's still exciting every day going into these games, even though, they've lost 4 in a row now. We're going to go to this Houston series. Like I still get excited even more than I normally would just being a Rockies diehard. I still get more excited seeing the lineups that they're putting out and knowing that it's more of an unknown versus an expected to be bad. Now, they go offensively like this for another week, and we're doing this show next Monday, and it was still a lot more of the same. I think we'll have a little bit of a different conversation. But right now, I'm like, all right, they faced Skeens yesterday. Of course, he's dominating everyone.
Best pitcher in baseball.
And they came off a long homestand playing at Coors Field every day. They also came off, that was their final 3 games of 17 in a row.
Yeah.
So I'm not making excuses for them. The offense was shit all weekend. There's literally no way around it other than Brenton Doyle. He continues to swing a hot bat.
Yeah, he's hitting like 400 right now.
But the rest of the offense, I'm going to give them a pass and say that it was more of just a bad series than a tell of what's to come for this lineup.
Sure. Yeah. So, our headline, are we overhyping the young guys? I do think there is something to be said about the excitement that we have, like Drew brought up. It's natural for us to be excited about these young players. And we've asked this question on the show before. Are these the guys of the future? Is this Rockies offensive lineup? If you could insert a good pitching staff in there, can this Rockies offensive lineup that they have today be a playoff team? I don't think they can, but these are a bunch of rookies. So, you theoretically assume that they're going to continue to grow and get better over the next few years. So it kind of brings up the next question, which is a little more specific. Which of the players, of these young players, sticks long-term? Because you see the infield as it is right now. We're pleased with how the infield specifically is. You've got, Kyle Karros at third base. You've got Ezekiel Tovar at short. You've got Ryan Ritter at second. And you've got Warming Bernabel at first base. Now, we're assuming, especially given the recent success that Charlie Condon is having, that he's going to be coming up here in the next couple of years. And he's going to need a spot somewhere in the infield or at least in the DH spot. But he's going to need somewhere to play within that. Ethan Holiday in the next couple of years, hopefully, we're assuming he's going to come up and is another infielder that we're going to need to probably make some space for. So, yes, it's good to see that we're starting to get some options. We had options in the outfield last year coming into this season. Now it looks like the infield is where you've got all these options. So it kind of brings up the question, who do you see sticking long-term? Assuming that Charlie Condon and Ethan Holiday, I think they're going to get a big league shot because you invested all that money into them. So at some point, you're going to have to make room for them. Who sticks out of these young guys?
Dude, I'm giving you the most homer take of all time. I legitimately think that with the injection of Condon and Holiday at some point, maybe it's the purple glasses, I legitimately think everybody in the lineup these last few days, the Fernandezes, the Bernabels, the Ritters, the Karros is back, who's still kind of younger. Maybe like Mickey Moniak moves on at some point, or he's your vet. But like, I legitimately think this roster is good enough to compete in 2 to 3 years. I just think it's such a hodgepodge of guys in and out of the lineup this entire year. You got a first-time manager. You've got so many things against you that the baseball they're playing since the break is, dare I say, admirable for who they are. I legitimately believe that. And what I'm worried about is mostly just the rotation and the guys that are pitching the ball versus the guys that are hitting and fielding the ball. Because right now, I think if you gave this roster a decent starting pitching rotation, 4 or 5 guys that are going in and every day, like, yeah, you're going to have a series like the Pirates where you just don't score. But overall, this is a borderline close to 500 ball club with this lineup. I personally think that. So I think a lot of them are staying. And then you have, you don't know if Zach Bean's going to be a pro. You still don't know if Adael Almador is going to be Michael Toglia. There's a few other guys where we don't really know for sure. We're, definitely on the worst side of the fence with those 3 guys for sure. But I legitimately believe that this lineup today in 3 years could be a competitive lineup.
Yeah, I could see it. I do think there's going to be some cuts, and I'm curious to see how the Rockies handle the logjam, so to speak, over the next couple of years that's currently in the infield. Because right now, the way it stands, and Hunter Goodman, I'm going to say, off the top, is 100%, he's going to stick. Even if he's a subpar catcher, he can continue to get better as a catcher. You need his bat in the lineup, so he's a guarantee. I think it's going to come down to what we see from Ethan Holiday and what we see from Charlie Condon. If both of those guys are where you expect them to be in the next 2 years, you have some decisions to make on where you've got to make space for them. Doesn't mean you have to rush them, but you put $10 million, so to speak, into both of those players separately. So $20 million total invested into those 2 guys being the future of your franchise. And you're stacking elimination seasons on top of each other year after year. You've got to bring those guys up the minute they're ready. And so I do think there's going to be some competition that's going to force some tough decisions. And I hope the Rockies get to a place with their front office where they can salvage the value instead of just simply letting guys go, letting guys walk. So I'm kind of with Scott. I saw Scott in the chat earlier say, Ritter's the only guy I don't see sticking around the infield. I'm kind of with you on that. And this isn't a knock on Ryan Ritter. I think Ryan Ritter's a big leaguer. I think he's a guy who can play consistently on a big league team. And maybe he is a guy that is your stopgap over the next couple years where you can comfortably put him in the infield. He's going to hit 250 with a handful of home runs, and he's going to be a good middle infielder with Tovar for the next couple years until you see what you can get out of Ethan Holiday. But I think long-term, he doesn't have the depth as a player to get you to a postseason where you see a guy like Ethan Holiday possibly having that type of depth. So, it's hard to say now who sticks around because we just don't know what the future of our franchise is going to look like with our 2 future superstars. But I think it's exciting to see the infield where it's at right now. But I think there's going to be a lot of changes when this team hopefully at some point makes a playoff series one day in the next few years, if that's a possibility. It's not going to have a handful of the guys we see today.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, especially for the starting lineup. But the thing that I'm excited about with the current lineup that we have, and we've talked about this a few times, is if the Rockies had a bunch of guys that were playing this bad at the major league level, and your Ritters, your Karoses, your Bernabels, all these guys have been called up in the last 2 months, 3 months. If all of those guys were still in AAA or AA, we'd be excited about the future of the farm system and injecting those guys. I think the next year of development is kind of sped up for these guys where it's like, all right, now all of these guys become the veterans next year. And then in 1 to 2 years, depending upon the growth of the Holidays, the Condons, guys like that, then we can say, okay, those are guys that you need to get bats for, who it pushes, and then it makes the competition at the major league level even better, which I think is the problem that the Rockies have had is they've been calling guys up, and all these guys, not whether they deserve it or not, is kind of, you could dive into each person individually, but like they literally had to call Kyle Karros up because he was playing well in AAA, but he was also, they traded Ryan McMahon. They didn't really have a consistent third baseman, et cetera. So
Arcia got hurt.
Yeah, Arcia got hurt. So it's more out of need. And what I want to see is the current roster being pushed for major league competition by other guys, but the guys like Ryan Ritter's a perfect example. Ryan Ritter is the perfect player to have in 2 years on a competitive team as your Orlando Arcia, a guy that can, he doesn't have a ton of pop off the bench. Utility guy, can play multiple positions fast. There's a few of his traits that I really like where I don't necessarily know if we have to start trading them yet, but those guys they can round out your roster on a day-to-day basis in the middle of the season with guys that you brought up and guys that you still feel confident in, versus the Rockies having to go out in the offseason and sign the Farmers, the Martinis, the Moniacs. And I'm not saying Moniak is a bad thing, but though, like, I want the Rockies to be deep enough at the major league level with their own guys to not have to go do that this offseason. And then next year it's like, all right, well, Condon has to play. Is he going to take Bernabel's spot? Is he going to DH today? Is he going to play third today? And we're going to give guys off. Like, that will push the competition of the entire roster to be better, versus saying, okay, these guys still aren't ready. We're just going to not call them up. We're going to sign a bunch of other vets. And then when those kids have to be called up because of these other injuries, you're left with basically rushing them to the major leagues.
100%. I agree with you completely. I also, Dinger's Burner, you bring up wanting to trade prospects. I want to talk about that because that is an interesting point. I've heard some conversations about that I want to get into. But I also want to talk about warming Bernabel, because I've had some conversations with people recently about whether or not we think he is the real deal. Is warming Bernabel a guy that's going to stick around? He's obviously shown huge, he's shown the eye test on him is pretty good to start his career, but is it going to be something that you can count on long-term, especially out of the first base slot, to give you the good returns that you would expect out of the first base slot? So we're going to take our first break of the show. After the break, though, is warming Bernabel the real deal? We'll continue to have that conversation. And I also want to talk about prospects, and if the Rockies are going to be trading some prospects, is it time to move on from some guys? We'll talk about the possibilities of that coming up next. Well, I want to give some love to our friends right now over at Game Time, because it's football season, folks. Broncos football is back. College football is back. I've actually got my first college football broadcast on Saturday. I am pumped to be back doing some college football this year. And, it's a great time to really ramp up sports. I know for us, it's baseball season. We're still watching baseball. And it feels like when baseball ends, things kind of taper off. No. It's football season, and you gotta check out our friends over at Game Time, because if you're getting tickets to Broncos games, CU games, CSU games, maybe even if you're going out to Greeley to go get some UNC football in there as well, you've got to use our friends at Game Time. They make it easier and more affordable to get the tickets that you want, where you want. And there is truly no better way to get tickets. I've talked to so many people, not just here in Colorado, but all over. My entire family that lives in Seattle, they go to Mariners games, they go to Seahawks games. They watch they watch tons of sports, and they always use the Game Time app because it is truly the best. So check out our friends at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Use the Game Time app and download that Game Time app. Create an account. Use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use code DNVR. $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Raising Cane's, because although it might not feel like it, we got a little bit of rain the last couple days, it is still summer. Summer is still in full swing here in Colorado, and I am certainly planning some of my last minute summer road trips. Maybe not getting too far out. Going to do some mountain road trips here in the next couple weeks. But whenever I go on a road trip, I got to make sure I'm planning a trip that includes Raising Cane's, because Raising Cane's is the best summer road trip food. They've got, amazing crinkle cut fries. They've got the A+ rated hand battered chicken fingers. I mean, you just can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. Raising Cane's is road trip food. So when you're sneaking in those last few road trips of the summer season, you gotta use our friends over at Raising Cane's. Stop at a Raising Cane's. So many awesome locations to choose from. And also, you can get your order today at Cane's and keep the road trip going. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. All right. Warming Bernabel. He's taken Rockies Nation by storm. He's got a walk-off, against... Who was the walk-off against?
The Dodgers.
The Dodgers.
Yeah.
It was the Dodgers. How could I forget? Walk-off against the Dodgers. He's just, he was NL Player of the Week, his first week at the big leagues. I mean, Warming Bernabel is quickly becoming, at least if you watch a little bit of Rockies baseball, he's becoming a household name. Is he a long-term solution? Is he the real deal at first? Obviously, Tolia is a huge question mark right now. But is Warming Bernabel the guy that replaces him, or is he another one of the stopgaps that has a good first season and then kind of tapers off? What do we see from him?
Right now, I'm very concerned with not that my reputation really matters, because I've made a lot of bad Rockies calls, including the fact that this team was going to probably be competitive. But
sure.
The thing that's tough about Warming Bernabel is I can't confidently say, as much as I love the Rockies and want to be optimistic about them, I can't confidently say that any of them are going to carry over their. I mean, we haven't seen you can probably correct me on this, but I don't think we've seen a really bad debut or start of their, major league career, the first 2 weeks a month, a kind of decent sample size since the day of Amador. Every guy that the Rockies have called up mid-season, Ritter came up and was electric right to start. Warming Bernabel, electric. Kyle Karros, good. Like,
I'd say Fernandez is the only one that still hasn't quite gotten there for me yet.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I'm sure there's more guys that I'm forgetting, but every one of these guys seems to have a great start to the year or start to their MLB career and then tapers off. I want to believe Bernabel's different. I want to believe Karros is different. I want to believe all these guys are different. I just don't know if I can say that yet. And the weird thing about Bernabel is I think the eye test, I have to look at the exact numbers. The eye test says that he's been pretty good at first base, but it really just concerns me that you don't really have a spot for him. I mean, I'm looking up his just hitting stats here, and he's still listed as a third baseman on the MILB website. So you kind of know that Kyle Karros looks the part, but it just is weird to me that he's playing out of position, and it's like, all right, well, we need your bat in the lineup, and you still do have a DH spot, and the outfield's kind of crowded. There's going to be a guy left out of the lineup almost every day that I want to see playing, and that's just kind of how it goes. So maybe that's where the trade attempt, or trading somebody in the offseason makes more sense. But right now, I want to believe that he's hitting 286 in his MLB career and almost 100 at-bats. Like, I'm pretty confident that he's a good player. I just don't know if converting a third baseman to first base that's also right-handed, and obviously right-handed because he's, you don't have a third baseman that's left-handed, but it's just not his natural position, and I don't know if that really bodes well for us in the future.
Yeah, and it's a topic of debate right now because, like we've been saying, the eye test is there, and also there are some metrics that point to Warming Bernabel being someone who could stick or at least have success at the big league level. His K rate is low. His bat to ball skills are high. His bat speed is really high. And so when you see him going up against like a Skeens or even like Shohei or guys who can throw a little bit harder, he puts together good quality at bats. And I think that's one of the biggest positive surprises I've seen out of Warming Bernabel is he has really, for the most part, really good at bats. And he's giving you, quality looks in almost every time he steps into the batter's box. The power is an issue. Yes, he has 3 home runs that kind of came, but all of them were kind of sneak over the fence type of home runs. But if you look at his minor league stats, there is some reason to believe that this is a bit of an outlier, a bit of, kind of a peak for him. And hopefully, like we've been saying, hopefully we're wrong. But when you have a first baseman, you want to be able to have certain positions around the field that you can stack some power in. And first base is inevitably just going to be one of those positions because you theoretically are going to have a guy who's like Charlie Condon, 6'5", 6'6", and can hit the ball 500 feet. So it's rare to see a bat to ball contact hitting first baseman. And so I'm not going to, discredit him because he is playing out of position, but I just don't know if he is the guy, if he's the same kind of guy that we expect him or that we're seeing him right now. So I go back to your point about Ryan Ritter. Maybe he ends up being kind of that utility guy, a guy who can come in off the bench and you trust his at-bats. He's not going to show up and strike out off the bench, most likely. He can give you a good walk or just a nice, slap the other way base hit, no matter who's pitching. I could see that being a possible role for him down the road. So I'm not out on Warming Bernabel. He's given me no reason to doubt him, but I do think we could tamper our expectations just a little bit given his minor league stats to not overinflate the expectations moving forward.
Right. And I think if we temper our expectations in general, I think Warming Bernabel is a great player for this Rockies team right now and could be a potential piece of a good team in the future. I think the toughest part for me is obviously he had an electric, a 1 of 2 start to his major league career in the extra base hits and how many at bats. And like it had been done one time in the history of the MLB. And whenever you see history of the MLB, this isn't 30 years, 20 years, whatever. This is hundreds of plus years of, we went through all the Richmond Spiders. And all the teams
these are team names that we've never even heard of.
Correct. Yeah. I watched the 1942 movie On the Plane, the Jackie Robinson movie,
there you
which
go.
is pretty electric.
A classic.
But when you look at the history of baseball, Warming Bernabel's start was just electric. And I think the point we're in right now and the point we were in April, May, and going into June is we were obviously not scoring a ton of runs, which was frustrating, but they were also striking out at an insane clip. And we went through Tolia, the worst of all time, and McMahon was striking out all the time. And so now we have in those two exact spots, Kyle Karros and Warming Bernabel, who are, they're decent hitters from what the numbers that they've shown, but they're not striking out. And so that's like, you're dating a chick that hates watching sports. And then all of a sudden you're dating another girl, you get rid of her and you're dating another girl that likes watching sports. She may be shitty in all the other realms, but she has this one thing that you didn't have the last time. And so you really latch onto it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You and your crazy metaphors, man.
But it's just like, that's what it relates to me is like McMahon and Tolia were just strikeout fiends.
Yeah, we're latching on to that. You know, I mean, it's like you're filling a bucket that was not filled for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they're actually have decent numbers, so that's why they get inflated, and Rockies Nation gets inflated on these two guys because they're the two guys that I can look at the entire lineups that we've been putting out, and I know they're probably 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 in the best at bats they'll give you. They're not going to strike out. They're not going to swing at pitches out of the zone. They're going to take their walks. Everybody else is still kind of a wild card. I mean, everybody else is going to hit. Jordan Beck's going to hit way more home runs, but he's not. He's going to strike out way more and look way worse than guys like Bernabel and Karros are.
Yeah, so it's TBD on Bernabel right now. I'm going to be happy to see him for the next couple of years though, until Condon gets called up, and then we have a different conversation when that time comes up. I did see in the chat earlier. I think it was Jonathan Morris was asking, when we could possibly be seeing Condon and Holiday. I think 2027. Condon might be up in 2026 next year if he keeps going the way he's going. But I think if you play it safe, 2027. But let's be honest, I don't think 2026 is going to be a huge year for the Rockies. So I think there's a chance we see Condon, as soon as next year. But that's going to be an interesting one to see. I also wanted to change gears just a little bit because I had mentioned before the break. The Rockies are in a position right now where you're starting to get some log jams, both in the outfield and the infield, with talent that you kind of don't need anymore. And it's weird to say that because the Rockies are still going to be one of the worst teams in the history of baseball when all is said and done this year. And yes, you have had some guys get up and stick. Warming Bernabel, Ryan Ritter, Kyle Karros. You've Hunter Goodman. There are guys that are sticking so far at the big league level, but at the same time, this still isn't a playoff team. And whether that's just offensively, defensively, or especially pitching, we're still a long way away from being a playoff team. So you've got to start kind of making some decisions, though, long term. And I think this offseason, this might be a situation where we start seeing the Rockies making some decisions on some of their prospects. And I have a list of guys that I think we could possibly see going on the trade market this offseason. I think there's a possibility we see Zach Veen traded. I think Adael Amador might get kind of tossed away in a similar realm. I don't know if you could do like a 1-for-1 trade, but he might get sent away in a package deal. Tolia, I think if the Rockies got anything for Michael Tolia in this offseason, they would probably move on. And I was talking to someone in the press box during the Dodgers series about this, and we were having the conversation: do the Rockies try to trade Michael Tolia during this offseason? And they were saying, well, hell, is there even a team out there that's going to want Michael Tolia? And I think the answer for a guy like Tolia is yes, because there's always this phenomena in baseball where, a team looks at the Rockies and says, well, that's the Rockies. If we get a guy like Michael Tolia in our system with our guys, we can fix him, right? We can make him the 40 home run hitter that he should be. So I do think the Rockies could go out and get something for Michael Tolia. Yanquiel Fernandez, again, I've said it before, I'm not really too sold on him. I don't know if he's a guy that's your long-term solution out there. I think there's a handful of guys that we could see getting traded from a prospect perspective to open up some room for some of these guys who are going to be ready in 2027 when theoretically you could be in a position to be more competitive.
Yeah, and if this actually works out and what you're talking about is kind of a thing where they start trading some pieces or getting rid of some pieces that they don't necessarily believe in anymore and moving on from those guys, it's a positive outlook because you know that the major league roster is competing, or you think you have enough players to compete at that level. And then you're not calling guys up out of necessity. You're calling guys up because they are literally earning it at the AAA or AA level or whatever it is. Like, and shout out McCade Brown. I mean, he had a good start yesterday going against Paul Skeens for his first ever career start. Made a mistake in the 4th inning, but overall looked pretty good. And it looked really good when you compare it to what the Rockies pitching has looked like the last 3 to 4 weeks. So, but guys like that, like they literally had to call someone up to start a game because of the injuries and these other guys that are just so bad that you're like, well, nothing can be worse than this. And you want to get to a position where you have a major league roster that you feel comfortable with and is winning some games. And the guys like the Condons, the Holidays, those guys inject themselves into a bigger roster and become a part of it versus like them needing to come up and be these world beaters right off the bat. And because that can ruin guys' careers too. Like, I think a lot of these Rockies right now are more just excited that they're getting the chance, but you're not like, oh, Kyle Karras is going to come up and become Nolan Arenado, even though I did kind of say that. He just because he looks like him, not necessarily out of his play, but you're not expecting these guys to come up and change the franchise player by player. This is going to be a literal team and organizational effort to, flip the railroad tracks the other way and get this train going in the right direction instead of the wrong one.
And Cooper has a great question, and I'm glad you asked this. Who would we trade those prospects for, even younger prospects? I think you would trade it for pitching prospects. You're like you said, you're not going to be probably restarting. You're not going to go trade number 4 ranked prospect in Zach Veen for just some 18-year-old. But I think the Rockies need more pitching, right? We all know that. You have a position right now where you're kind of set, at least with some guys that you need to see develop. Again, you've got Ethan Holiday in the system now. You've got Charlie Condon, who's about a year or so out. And you've got a couple other guys, here at the big league level who you're expecting the trajectory to keep moving up. If you trust that those guys are going to be the future of your franchise, then you need to offload some of those other prospects, and Zach Veen being the biggest, because Zach Veen is your 4th ranked overall prospect right now. And he's a big question mark. And I can tell you, the conversations I've had with people within the organization, the Rockies have zero, and I've literally zero faith in Zach Veen's mental capacity to be a big leaguer. I think the Rockies are just buying time at this point with Zach Veen. I think they do not have faith in Zach Veen. I don't think they expect him to be the person that he is. So you've got a number 4 ranked prospect sitting in your system that you don't believe in. Get rid of him. Go get a pitcher, right? You can get some good value from a guy like Zach Veen. Go pick up a pitcher.
Yeah, and in your point, those 4 names that you listed and the 4 guys we have here, Veen, Amador, Tolia, Fernandez, those 4 guys all fit the same mold of they're still prospects, but we've seen them at the major league level. And we've seen that it's not that there's a reason they're back down in AAA or AA or wherever they're at, because they didn't have success at the major league level. So the Rockies need to move on from those guys and find more pitching or more players that are still waiting for their major league call up versus guys that, their entire 90% of their actual major league roster right now theoretically could still be in AAA and it'd be comfortable.
Yeah.
But they're all in the majors, and you have this weird gap of hopefully a bunch of good guys at like single A, high A, double A, and then AAA is kind of just this black hole of old major leaguers and some guys that shouldn't be up there.
Yeah.
And then
Sam Hilliard's still there.
Yeah, exactly. Your AAA team right now is kind of a mess because they've either gotten called up and stayed up, the Karoses, Bernabels, or they've gotten called back down, Veens, Tolias, and you just don't think they're going to work at the major league level. So flipping those guys for some double A or single A prospects, preferably pitching ones that you can then bring up and hope that can be part of your future without the knowledge of what they actually are at the major league level, is where they need to go. They need to get, ironically, they need to get younger, even though their major league roster is extremely young.
Yeah. Yeah. The Rockies are in an interesting spot. It's like a double-edged sword. Like on one hand, you're feeling pretty good about some of the guys that you want to see develop, but on the other hand, you've kind of got a surplus right now of guys that you don't need anymore. So move on from them, get pitching, and see where that takes you. But we got to take our second break of the show. After the break, the Rockies have officially been mathematically eliminated, although we knew they were eliminated back on March almost. So the Rockies the Rockies have been eliminated. What was the biggest disappointment so far of 2025? Biggest predictions gone wrong? And also, we've closed the book on the Nolan Arenado trade. That's all coming up next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. Well, I want to give some love to our friends right now over at Bet365 because Bet365 is where we go when you're betting either on or against the Colorado Rockies because, Rockies have been a tough watch at times this year. And so we like to make a little bit of money when the Rockies aren't playing well. But the Rockies have made it more interesting in the back half of this season and made it a little more challenging for Spence to do his anti-Rockies parlay. I did see you were throwing out some anti-Rockies parlays over the weekend. We have an off day today. Anything you want to share that happened over the weekend?
I'll share past successes.
Okay,
versus,
there you go. Past
I'm
dubs.
I'm talking about being like the Rockies going back and talking about 2007.
yeah, living in the past.
Because there is no Rockies game to bet on today, but yesterday I went full go on the anti-Rockies parlay and hit it. I had Pirates money line. I had Paul Skeens over 7 strikeouts. I had Paul Skeens under 1.5 earned runs. The Rockies didn't even score that in the entire series.
Attaboy.
And I had Andrew McCutchen, who owns the Rockies more than Dick Moffitt
Retired
does.
Andrew McCutchen.
Yeah. Retired Andrew McCutchen over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. That was boosted on Bet365. You can always get your parlays boosted on the Bet365 app. So I made, I was plus 340.
Not bad.
And the only thing I was actually worried about was, I was worried about like a bloop and a bomb, like what happened to Skeens in Coors Field. That never happened. But Skeens actually took a lot longer to get to 7 strikeouts than I anticipated.
Yeah.
So that was the only worry. The Pirates money line and the McCutchen hit happened early in the game. So I'm pumped about that, winning that parlay, but it's nice to not bet on the Rockies today.
Yeah.
And then
take a breath.
And I'm still going to be more anti-Rockies than Rockies, but it goes in waves, just like their season. Once they have a few good games, I throw some Rockies in there. And right now, I'm full anti-Rockies.
Full anti-Rockies.
Yesterday, I was like, should I throw in a hit for X-Rocky or should I throw in a Freeman hit?
Don't
or
give it to
Doyle
him.
hit. And I was like, nope, we're just going to go full pirate mode and
it worked
build
out
my
for you.
account back up.
There you go. Well, use that code DNVR365 when you sign up and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Volo because summer is winding down, but you still got a couple good weeks, maybe even a couple good months of sunshine left. And with the good summer season comes Volo. Volo is an adult social sports league where you could just go out and have fun outside. I mean, there's literally nothing more to it. It is an awesome thing that you can get involved with here in Denver. You go join a league as a pickup player or as an official member of a team, and you could just jump in on pickleball, kickball, basketball, cornhole, volleyball, soccer, so many more. My personal favorite, beer in hand kickball. Incredible stuff. We've met so many awesome people doing Volo stuff. You could see Volo shirts just walking around town everywhere you go. You can see their Volo beach volleyball courts on the side of Broadway. It's awesome. So it's an incredible way to meet new people, make friends, and be social. You can, like I said, sign up as a free agent, small group, or full team. All ability levels and backgrounds are able to join. Use code DNVR10 for $10 off any Volo Denver league. Well, breaking news here on the DNVR Rockies podcast. The Rockies have officially been eliminated. Not coming as a surprise to literally anyone, but it is official that the Rockies are mathematically no longer able to achieve Rocktober, whether they win out and everyone loses out. Doesn't matter how it happens. Rockies can't do it. Biggest disappointment of 2025. What was that for you?
Dude, Dinger's burner is me in my mind. And I don't know if he's Dinger's burner also on Twitter, but I met him at the Rooftop Friday Club.
Okay.
I met Dinger's burner on Twitter. I don't know if it's Dinger's burner on YouTube, but I think Tovar, I did have the bet on him to have the most doubles in the MLB this year, which would be looking great if he had played all year. And then I think it's all the guys that we literally talked about. Romo to me is still a question mark. We don't know what he is, and obviously he's not even good enough to play at the major league level, so that's kind of concerning. But it's all the guys that we called up and got excited for and have been, Chase Dolander. I think you can throw him in there.
Chase, man. Yeah, he's totally part of that.
He's been terrible. And a lot of guys that they've called up have just been, there's been flash in the pan weeks, and we're still getting some of the call-ups now that are actually going well. But I think the biggest disappointment in an organizational lens is just the fact that the guys like the Farmers and the Martinis and the Sean Bouchards and the Sam Hilliards, you can go on and on for all the guys that have played for the Rockies this year that have just had absolutely nothing to do with their future or their winning. And that part's just frustrating in general, because the team right now has been playing better baseball, but it's at least a fun watch, and it's a fun, exciting lineup that you're getting every single day of what you could potentially see in the future. We got so many, and Bud Black was a big reason for this, but we got so many bad lineups early in the year and so many veterans trying to play good baseball. And if this team had played the whole year, the team that we have now had been up most of the whole year and they still had this bad of a record, it would be like, all right, well, maybe some of these guys aren't legit, but now we're probably going into the offseason with still a bunch of question marks.
Yeah.
And those question marks could turn into exclamation points, but they also could turn into thumbs down emojis. But we won't find out until the middle of next year if this team is that bad again. So I think the overall disappointing part of the whole season is just the fact that we haven't seen enough from guys. We've seen enough to get excited, but we haven't seen enough to be realistic about where they're at or where they're going to be. Yeah.
Two biggest disappointments for me. Michael Toglia, which we've talked about. I really thought, I thought he was going to be an all-star this year. 30 plus home runs, Gold Glove first baseman. And he had the tools on paper. That was a bust. Ryan Feltner is another huge disappointment. Ryan Feltner last year looked like your best starting pitcher. He looked like a guy that you were like, hey, maybe he's our stopgap. Maybe everyone else sucks, but he's the guy that him and maybe Kyle Freeland could be, your two that you can trust to get 5 or 6 hard-fought innings. And Ryan Feltner's nowhere to be found. That was a disappointment. I did see. I think it was Dingers Burner. Yeah, Dingers Burner. Shout out Alan Trejo. Yeah, there were some wild lineups that we threw out there earlier in the season.
The Sunday game that I covered, it was like Farmer, Arcia, and this was after. I was like, why?
Yeah,
I was like, I don't. And we actually won the game.
I know.
Senzatella pitched like 7 scoreless. I was like, I thought that was going to be the highest scoring game in the history of baseball.
Oh yeah,
and we won like 4-2.
You're ready for a rock show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot. When we do our final show of the season, or at least probably the first show after the season ends, we'll do like a full all-encompassing like ranking of biggest disappointments of this season, and we'll go deep into the misery. There's a lot. Biggest prediction gone wrong of 2025. I can probably guess what I think yours would be.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that they were going to win 72 games or be a 500 ball club.
Yeah.
Now, I do have a little bit of an out because since the All-Star break and since this is literally 2 different Rocky seasons to me. And I'm choosing to believe that because of the optimist in me. That since the All-Star break, this is about what I expected the Rockies to be. Is this team. Like, I think they're 5 or 6 games under 500 in a 30-game span.
Playing good teams, too.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to be an 85-win team. I never anticipated that, but I anticipated them being a 70-92 team. That's about where I thought they'd fall. And that's not great, but it's worlds better in terms of wins and losses than where they're at.
Yeah,
and where they'll ever get to.
You're even like, even what the White Sox are doing is better than what the Rockies are doing. It's historically bad.
Yeah, and so that I think that was probably my worst prediction of the year. And I might have had a Toglia prediction, but we just keep getting these guys that have there's 6 guys I can count on 2 hands. Actually, 6 guys would need 2 hands. But I was going to say there's guys I can count right off the bat that have had these great runs of 3 to 4 months or even an entire season, and then have been extreme disappointments the year after. And that when we get in the off season, we talk about the 2026 year, the guys like Hunter Goodman come to mind where that he would fit that mold, or even the Jordan Becks. You're scared as a Rockies fan. You're more scared
even
of
Doyle.
The next year being a drop off than you're excited for the next year being another step forward, because every guy that's given you a great season has turned around and followed it with a rough season.
Yeah. You don't ever trust the Rockies organizationally to either develop guys or to keep guys hot when they're there. It's like 2017, 2018, the Rockies on paper, they're a playoff team. They're a team that looks really good. They have so much talent, and here comes the front office like a bowling ball, just going let's just completely break through everything that we had built. It's been tough. Biggest prediction for me, also in the Toglia realm. I truly thought Michael Toglia was going to be an all-star. I predicted that he was going to be an all-star. I predicted he was going to be a Gold Glove first baseman. I thought I talked to Todd Helton about it, and Helton, kind of candidly told me, yeah, he's got the tools. He's got the specific stuff to do those kind of things, and nowhere to be found. So it's tough to watch. It was a tough watch this year. A lot of a couple good things, but a lot of bad. And yeah, it's been a long, long season. We are less than a month away, by the way, from this thing wrapping up. We're almost a month away. I think the Rockies' last game is what, September 27th or something like that. It's wild to think that that the season is almost done.
Yeah, 32 more games.
31 more games. Shout out to Scott in the chat who has our running counter. 31 more games. Rockies need 5 wins to avoid history, 4 to tie it. Yeah, it's been a hell of a season. We got to pause. Hit our last break of the show. After the break, is the Nolan Arenado trade the worst trade in MLB history? We go through some layers of that and close the book officially on the Nolan Arenado trade. That's coming up. All right, here we go. Austin Gomber was officially released, unconditionally released by the Colorado Rockies after he was placed on waivers, which that was a hell of a thing. He was placed on waivers, and then the team wasn't saying anything about it because apparently waivers, you got to be a lawyer to figure all this stuff out. Apparently waivers are like super confidential, and the team was like not saying anything. They couldn't even hint about what was going on. Bob Nightingale posted that thing about Austin Gomber going on waivers, and then we see Austin Gomber down in the dugout. It was a whole thing. So Austin Gomber goes on waivers. Then they officially, no one claims him. They officially release him. So that truly closes the book on the Nolan Arenado trade. And I know we've kind of talked about this before, but I mean, now that it's said and done, I think you can make the argument that Nolan Arenado trade, the Colorado Rockies and the St. Louis Cardinals trading Nolan Arenado, was the worst trade in MLB history, at least top 5. And I did some of the breakdowns here. So in case you guys forgot, let's remind you guys what transpired in this trade.
Do we have to?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it just because I think we need closure.
Yeah, that is a good point.
We need some closure.
We're finally about to get closure. We're meeting up with that girlfriend that didn't like sports. We're going to sit in the car and talk at the pool.
And now she's dating a 10 out of 10, jacked college football player. And, but you need the closure still.
Yeah, you
right?
just got to know that it wasn't right and just end it.
That there was something not right. Nolan Arenado, a couple of years ago, was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals alongside $50 million for Austin Gomber, who has spent somewhat of around 5 seasons in Major League Baseball. He has a 5.31 ERA and a 1.4 whip. Included in that trade, Elehuris Montero, who was the best prospect traded in that deal. He came to the Colorado Rockies, spent roughly around 3 seasons, has a .228 batting average, .664 OPS, a minus 1.7 WAR, and I believe, if I remember correctly, is now playing overseas. All of the other players that I'm going to mention never saw a big league field. Mateo Gil played in A-ball, never got above A-ball. He was released in 2020. Tony Losi made it to Double-A. He had a whopping 12.11 ERA, and he was traded to the Rays in 2022. Who knows what he's doing now? And Jake Sommers, the final player who was traded in that deal, played in Double-A, had a whopping 11.74 ERA. Nolan Arenado, who, as we all know, isn't the player he was at his peak with the Rockies, but he still is a hell of a player. 3-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glover. He finished 3rd in MVP voting in 2022. He was a Silver Slugger that year. If you look at the metric that we use to calculate wins above replacement, basically how good a certain player or set of players are, WAR, the Rockies received a 1.5 WAR in that trade. St. Louis, 17.9 WAR collectively so far in the Nolan Arenado trade. Brutal.
Oh, dude. I'm like trying to Google
Did you
Tony Losi right now.
Yeah. Are you getting a little PTSD from me going through all of that? It's not good.
I don't have a good memory of a lot of things that happened in my life, and I remember the exact moment and where I was when I saw the Nolan trade come through on the ESPN app. I remember exactly where I was, and just the sign of, we talked about the what ifs on one of our pods a couple of months ago, and just how insane that you traded your franchise cornerstone. And at that moment, it hurt, but it didn't hurt as bad because you thought the Mateo Gills, the Tony Losis, the Elehuris Monteros, and getting a major league player back in Austin Gomber, you're like, okay, well, they at least, maybe refilled the farm system, because we're getting hyped over, we got hyped over the Jake Bird trade. We got hyped over the Ryan McMahon trade because we got some prospects back, and those were just 2-for-1s. This was essentially a 5-for-1. You gave him $50 million, which also pissed everyone off because the Rockies are so, notorious for not spending a ton of money on players up until the Chris Bryant debacle. And you're just like, all right, I'm going to try to erase Nolan out of my mind. He didn't want to be here. He can move on. We can be hopeful for these players. And as you just went through the entire list, not one of them ended up being a serviceable major leaguer outside of Gomber had like one, I want to say it was either last year or 2 years ago. You're like, all right, Austin Gomber's a decent 3
Had some
or
good
4
starts
in a rotation. But that's not worth trading your franchise cornerstone, and not just a good player, not just a Hall of Famer, but a guy that if you go to a Rockies game nowadays, Nolan's by far the most popular jersey I see.
Oh yeah.
The 28 Arenado jersey is the most popular jersey still, because the Rockies don't have those guys. They never got those guys that like changed the trajectory of a franchise and did it with the glove, did it with the bat, had the moments, the Father's Day walk-off, all those things that he had. He's still a very popular player around here in terms of like people owning jerseys and knowing who that was. And when I did the Name Your Rocky the other day at the field, the one chick was like, "Can I name a former Rocky?" I was like, "Sure." She's like, "Nolan Arenado," and that was like
she didn't even have to phone a friend.
No, that was the last name that stuck with people. So it is really frustrating. And honestly, the part that is crazy is Austin Gomber, that whole situation, it's not even, I don't even want to mention his name from the standpoint of like, oh, he's been terrible this year, talk about his baseball at all. That dude's in a terrible spot. Just in general. Yeah. And it's so bad that it's like untalkaboutable. Yeah, I know.
It kind of is. I think after that post-game interview, I mean, the Rockies couldn't keep running him back out there. It was tough.
Were you in the clubhouse for that?
Oh yeah, I was in there asking him questions because I tried to because we were talking to Gomber and he was so down on himself, and I tried to give him an out by asking, "Hey, what's the next steps? Right? You're obviously really frustrated. Where do you go from here to get your confidence back?" And he literally was just like, "I don't know. I'm lost. I don't know." I'm like, "Man, dude, I'm like trying to help you. Right. I'm giving you a line like, hey, I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I'm going to, watch some film and we're going to figure this out and we're going to get better tomorrow." Like, it was none of that. So
it was just a straight up,
it was just like,
I don't know if I'm ever going to throw a baseball again.
Yeah, it was wild. So that was tough. It does bring up the question though, like, is it the worst trade to ever happen? There's a couple big trades that I can think of that were pretty bad that you can note out there. In 2016, the Padres, or the White Sox traded Fernando Tatis for James Shield. Most of these other trades are like trades of guys that you didn't really know were going to be that good, that like looked good on paper, but you didn't know were the real deal yet. And they traded him away, and then they ended up becoming like a superstar when they left. The big one where a team traded away arguably, their cornerstone player for not a lot of return was the Red Sox. When the Red Sox traded Mookie Betts and David Price to the Dodgers for Alex Verdugo, Jeter Downs, and Connor Wong. I mean, all three of those were at least big league players, but none of those players were Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts went on to win a World Series with the Dodgers and is an incredible player. Marlins traded Christian Yelich to the Brewers for Lewis Brinson, Eisen Diaz, Monte Harrison, and Jordan Yamamoto. Don't know who any of those players are, for Christian Yelich. So, I mean, like, there's some of those trades, but again, you could still make the argument that sending $50 million away plus over 17 WAR with Nolan Arenado has to be top 5 worst trades in the history, at least the recent history of baseball.
Oh yeah, and I was arguing with someone on Twitter that it wasn't even the worst trade in sports. He was trying to say it wasn't even the worst trade in Denver sports, like that the Russell Wilson deal was worse. And I can't agree, because you look what you traded away in, and this isn't the Broncos pod, but shout out to the Broncos pod guys. But you traded away Shelby Harris, nobody, Draymond Jones, and nobody, Noah Fant, nobody, and the first round picks who became decent players. But it's kind of the same thing. Like we're trading away all of these nobodies, but we got a nobody back. And the Cardinals didn't get a nobody back. Nolan Arenado's been just as good with St. Louis as he was with Colorado, but they still haven't. I will say this until they do it, and they're not going to even do it this year because they're not going to make the playoffs. Nolan Arenado has won more games with the Rockies in the playoffs than he has the Cardinals. Still,
he's been in more games. Yeah. Because he still hasn't been in a single playoff game with the Cardinals. The Russell Wilson deal also, on paper, made sense. The Nolan Arenado trade didn't make sense on paper because, again, you're sending $50 million away, and you look at you're trading a cornerstone player and you say, well, none of these guys are proven. Cornerstone players are proven. You don't trade a cornerstone player for unproven prospects. That's why the Pirates are not trading Paul Skeens, because the Pirates look at Paul Skeens and say, yeah, we need a bunch of prospects. We need to rebuild this offense. But Paul Skeens is he is a once in a lifetime type of player. Like, he's guaranteed. He is not going to just wake up one day and suck. Nolan Arenado doesn't just wake up and suck. He might be not as good as he used to be. He's still making it to the All-Star game. He's still winning Gold Gloves. He's still a Silver Slugger in 2022. He's still a very, very good player. He's still arguably the best player in St. Louis. So, yeah, on paper, the Russell Wilson trade still looked better. It just didn't work out. You look at the results and you're like, hindsight's 2020, but it just didn't work out.
Right, yeah. And sometimes trades just don't work out. Guys go to different places, and sometimes changes of scenery are great for guys, and sometimes they're not.
Has Nolan been in a playoff game with the Cards?
He may have played in a game, but he won playoff games with the Rockies. Or maybe they.
I know he hasn't won. Yeah, I know he hasn't won one.
Okay, yeah, he's played in 3. He played in at least 3 in the Brewers series in 2017, 2018. Yeah, I am calling Lux. I am calling Noah Fant a nobody. I'm an Iowa Hawkeyes fan. I love Noah Fant. I loved him in college. He's like the 4th best Iowa tight end in the professional in the NFL. Like, yeah, he's definitely not what we drafted in the first round. He's just he's a 30th best tight end in the NFL. Like,
we should get Hank to come over from the Broncos show so we can just seamlessly transition into Broncos
just
talk.
Throw right into exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad the book is closed on that, right? The next book that needs to be closed is He Who Must Not Be Named. Chris Bryant. Can we please close the book on Chris Bryant so we can do this whole closure deal where we sit there and say, oh, he played this many games and he did this much, and this is how much WAR Chris Bryant had, and now we're done. We can all move on.
Does the book get closed on Chris Bryant first or Bill Schmidt first?
Oh, Bill Schmidt. I think the book gets closed on Bill Schmidt, and then I think whoever comes in next says, yeah, goodbye, Chris. We're moving on. Thank you for your time and your service. I have to say real quick, the post when the Rockies do the thank you graphic, they did the one for Austin Gomber, and you read through the comments and it's just miserable.
I had to not do that. I saw the graphic and I thought, I don't know what admin thought this was a good idea.
But you have to. You can't not. I mean, you can't as a social media manager, you have to do that thank you, even if you know that player's going to get roasted. I mean, Austin knows he's going to get roasted. You just have to do it. It's an organizational courtesy. Do the Rockies do a thank you graphic when they eventually move on from Chris Bryant or when he retires?
It may be the best reply section of Twitter of all time.
I don't know if they do. I mean, what are you thanking him for? Thank you for. We paid you.
Yeah.
We paid you almost $200 million.
Maybe a free agent scenario is different than a trade scenario where like the guy had no choice but to come here. Like Gomber comes here he's like, oh, I'm the top player, the top current MLB player traded for a franchise's cornerstone. I'm now part of a massive deal where the fans will look at me as like the return, and whereas like Chris Bryant chose to come here and they chose to pay him. So maybe they won't give him the thank you graphic.
I think they will. I think the Rockies will give him a thank you graphic because they have to. Again, it's an organizational courtesy. The Rockies are better than that. They're the mature group in there. But that has to be the most insane reply section you'll ever read.
It'll be great.
Wow.
We could do a whole show on just the replies.
We could. Oh my gosh. Chris Bryant is still at games. I mean, I don't know if he travels with the team, but I'm like in the clubhouse every once in a while, and me and like Patrick Saunders will be standing there and we'll be like looking in the corner, like, is that Chris Bryant? Yeah, that's Chris Bryant. He's just sitting there in the corner,
I will say an interesting, like Dinger's Burner said, thanks for stealing our money. I would like to see a number if we could get Chris Bryant's contract and Chris Bryant's jersey sales. Because I'm not saying they're close, but the amount of jerseys that they sold for Chris Bryant and the amount of Chris Bryant jerseys, just like Nolan Arenado that I see, it's a lot closer than you think it is for the amount of money that they paid him.
I guarantee if we ever actually saw that number, it would be shocking in a negative way, where you'd think that there'd be $100 million worth of jerseys sold. It'd probably be like $2 million or something. Jersey sales are a good chunk of money, but I mean, what does a jersey sell for? $200?
Probably 150.
150.
Yeah.
And it costs the team $20 probably to make that You know,
Their profit on his jersey sales was much more than their profit on his
they're making money, but
on the field.
It's like you try. Here's my comparison. It's like you going and placing a mortgage on the Rockies to hit the win total this year, hit the over on wins.
I kind of did that.
And then trying to make up for that with anti-Rockies parlays throughout the season. like you can get close, or you can have like a little chunk of money that comes back. But you still put a mortgage on, the Rockies to hit their win total this year, and the Rockies aren't even close to that.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
It's tough. It's tough. All right, we gotta actually perfect timing. We are gonna head into overtime just real quick. So if you're watching on television, head over to thednvr.com to continue this conversation. We got to finish, as we always do with our Monday show, Circle of Trust. Who is in the Colorado Rockies Circle of Trust?
Do we have to have one?
Is that a thing?
Just kidding. All it is Victor Vodnik is the only guy that comes to mind.
Okay. All right. Victor's there.
And you know what's annoying?
Yeah, the offense took a step back, but...
I'm going on a little tangent here. Oh, Brenton Doyle, Victor Vodnik, firmly in the Circle of Trust. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. The last 3 games, the Rockies scored 1 run. We've talked about it. They allowed like
20 something.
Yeah,
17 something.
4 yesterday, 5 or 6. Yeah, they got beat up in a couple games yesterday. It was 4-0. Pretty simple, low scoring baseball game. Why is the bullpen always fucking good when we're down 5 runs? Like every time I do a post Rockies, the Colorado Rockies are this record and what went right and what went wrong. Every game that they lose, like where they score 0 runs, the bullpen is phenomenal. Because I go through the stats to try to pick out, I watched most of the game, so I kind of know who was good and who wasn't. But every game, I'm like, oh, the starter gave up 5, and the bullpen went 6 2/3, gave up 0 runs.
Yeah.
But every time they're up, you're worried about the bullpen. Like, they are the best low leverage bullpen I've ever seen in my life.
It's the graphic that I post every once in a while on DNVR Rockies Twitter. It's like the little video, and it has the Rockies logo, and then it's like the tabs are alternating between starting pitching, hitting, bullpen, and it's like when one turns on, another turns off. When you get offense, your pitching turns off. When you get good pitching, your offense, we can never have it all. So yeah, I'm with you though. I think Beede and Vodnik are firmly in that circle of trust. Warming is still in there for me. He gives you good at bats. Offense as a whole was off. It was a bad series.
Yeah,
I'm still in on good at bats.
If it infiltrates into the Houston series, we will be a little bit more concerned about the actual circle of trust. And Scott, by the way, haircut has not happened yet.
Yeah, we were gonna update that. I was gonna say so.
I was moving all weekend. My house is still a disaster.
You have no hot water.
I have no hot water, so I've been showering. I showered last night and I couldn't breathe for my entire shower. It was like 2 minutes long. I'm gonna go to my old house and shower today, but I think I am gonna go. We were gonna try to do the haircut here in studio. I don't think anybody wants that with the current state of my hair and cleaning it up. So I'm probably gonna go live on Twitter for my 3 people that watch it. And
we'll be there.
We'll just cut it live on Twitter, and I'll just set up my phone in my bathroom and buzz it all off. But it's still hanging out there. It is gonna be nice.
The Rockies are 2-2 when we bet our hair styles on opposing pitchers.
Yeah, and now you kind of cut your hair. My hair is going to be shaved, so I don't know what we're going to do. The next big matchup, we have to do this again.
I don't know, man. It's broadcasting season. I've got a haircut, so my first football broadcast is on Saturday, and I have a haircut scheduled on Friday. So the length of the mullet, I'm still probably gonna, I'll tell him to keep the back a little bit,
Yeah, you
fluffy.
got UNC Saturday.
Yeah, I got UNC Saturday. Yeah. College football, man. We're back.
Doing some roster looking.
Doing some game notes. Oh, yeah. Notes. UNC has won 2 games over their last 2 years. So we're in for a long season.
Is Ed McCaffrey still there?
No, he is not there. He is not. But yeah, it's going to be a good college
football season. I am a man
season.
of my word, and I will shave my head. And Cole, what's funny about that is I've shaved my head and then let it grow back to a mullet 3 separate times in my life, and I probably will do it again. I'll shave it. It'll be nice. It will be nice to not have to. We talked about this. When you have longer hair as a dude, well, girls too, but I only know life as a dude. When you have longer hair, you have to wash it. You have to do stuff to it every day when you leave the house. I didn't do anything to mine today, but I'm literally here for the pod, and I'm going back home to try to fix my water heater. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
But when you want your hair to look nice and you're out in public, you got to do something with it. It is going to be so nice when I can just shave my head off and not have to, like, I can wake up, I can go to the gym. I don't have to put a hat on at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to put a hat on at work. I
Yeah.
can just, let my little bald spot here in the top be free.
Yeah.
And my hair is just chilling. So beard is not going, Mr. Purple. No way. I look like a 12-year-old. I would not be allowed in my work building. They'd be like, hey, kids, East High School's over here. Like, it's bad. I can't get rid of the beard. The beard's got to stay. Because when my head's shaved, I got to have an identity, and it's the beard.
Yeah, I might be going. I might be shaving too because it's football season. So I gotta go clean shaven and all that stuff. I also have. I lose like 5-6 years when I've got a baby face, so it's tough.
Yeah, it's bad.
Marissa hates it. She's
well, mine is my double chin, dude. Like this, I look like a fat baby, not just a baby. I look like a fat baby.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Cole, you asked who on the Rockies has the best mullet this season? Jordan Beck. Jordan Beck actually complimented my mullet the other day. I got a Jordan Beck mullet compliment the other day. Yeah,
that's when you know that shit's gas. Like when somebody with a good mullet gives you
I was like, all right.
compliment, you're like, yep.
It's like, please put me on the mound and let me pitch now. My mullet will sustain my outing. Yeah,
my mullet has a better ERA than the Rockies starters last 2 weeks.
Unfortunately. All right, well, I got an appointment to get to here soon. We are going to be doing our show on Wednesday this week and next week, actually, because we've got a ton of stuff going on.
We're just Monday, Wednesday boys.
Or Monday, Wednesday boys. Eventually that'll change, but for now, Monday, Wednesday. So we'll see you guys on Wednesday at noon. Thank you for hanging out with us. Drop us a like, hit subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. This has been the DNVR podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.